Welcome to Rooted, Stories of Entrepreneurship and Agribusiness, a podcast from Colorado State University's Department of Agricultural and Resource Economics. I'm your host, Lauren Chenarides. I'm currently an assistant professor of agricultural business at Colorado State University, where I teach a course on agribusiness entrepreneurship. In this podcast series, we explore stories of how people across the food and agriculture industry identify problems, create solutions, and build or improve businesses that make an impact. What makes Rooted unique is that each episode is co-hosted by students in the Agribusiness Entrepreneurship course, who bring their own curiosity and questions to the table. Their conversations with leaders across food and agriculture are a chance to learn, reflect, and share those insights with you, our audience of students, entrepreneurs, and change makers in food and agriculture. I appreciate your time and attention, and I'm excited to share these inspiring stories with you. I'm joined today by our student co-hosts, Coal and Hadden, both agricultural business majors. And our guest today is Jordan Levi. Jordan is the founder and CEO of Arcadia Asset Management, which manages a physical livestock fund for institutional clients. In 2018, Arcadia and its partners acquired Five Rivers Cattle Feeding, the world's largest cattle feeding operation. He also founded the Fed Cattle Exchange, an online trading platform. Jordan serves on the board of Five Rivers Holding Company and holds advisory roles with CattleFax, Rabo AgriFinance, and the Texas Cattle Feeders Association. He's also adjunct faculty at CSU and an active member of CSU's Ag Industry Leadership Council. Jordan graduated cum laude from Babson College in 1998 with a degree in finance and economics, and completed the general course at the London School of Economics. He began his career in commodity trading at Framework Investment Group, managing grain and livestock operations for a $1 billion fund. That experience sparked a lifelong career at the intersection of agriculture, finance, and entrepreneurship, and truly just so impressive here, and so glad to have you here. Welcome to the podcast, Jordan.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Absolutely.
It's great to be here. It's great to see my mentees again.
Yes. And this has been a really awesome program that we've had introduced to the Agribusiness Entrepreneurship class. So, and with us, Hadden and Cole are two of the mentees and here to grill you on all of your entrepreneurship experience.
Ready to be grilled.
Just like me.
Yes.
Well, first of all, Jordan, really appreciate you making the time to come out here.
Yes,
I know that you were busy this morning. Where were you at this morning? Like, what were you up to?
Yeah, so I woke up this morning in New York City and took a flight from Newark, landed about 2 hours ago in Denver, and had a great series of investor meetings yesterday, and was fortunate enough to make it back for this, but I wouldn't have missed it. So.
Yeah, no, we appreciate it. You know, it was a tight squeeze for you, and thanks for abiding to our schedule. It's very, very nice of you to do that. We just wanted to start and ask, just how did this all get started? How did your entrepreneurial your journey start? We know that Chicago, pretty important for financial sector of the U.S. A lot of big universities over there. How did this all just begin?
Sure. It's a good question, but I've been fortunate enough in my career to have known what I've always wanted to do. And that started at a pretty young age. I think I was 12 or 13. It may have been movies like Wall Street or Trading Places, but I always knew I wanted to trade. The action plus the ability to create real wealth and take on risk for some reason appealed to me at a very young age. And so starting around 13, 14 years old, I started to plan my career, which was to ultimately have my own fund and be involved in trading. I didn't know what that meant, whether it was stocks or bonds. I didn't even know what commodities were, other than the frozen concentrated orange juice that they trade in Trading Places. But I'm a Jewish kid from the Chicago suburbs, and when we become of age as Jews at the age of 13, we have a big party as a bar mitzvah, and those bar mitzvahs have themes. My brothers, I think, revolved around hockey or baseball, and the theme of mine was Wall Street Jordan. So at 13,
Awesome.
I always knew what I wanted to do. And there's a picture floating around in my office of me with a Wall Street Journal underneath my arm. And
That's awesome.
they're always putting it up to tease me. But anyways, I always knew what I wanted to do. And around 14 years old, there was an ad in the paper for a runner on the floor of the Chicago Board of Trade. I called up and I said, hey, if you'll pay my train ticket, I'll come down and work for you for free. So every winter, spring, and summer break from that point forward till I graduated college, I was working on the floor of the exchanges, trying to get the education to allow me to achieve those goals. I went to school out east at Babson College. When I graduated, I went to work for a fund called Framework, which was managing about $1 billion for the AIG network. And at a very early point in my career, I was asked whether I wanted to focus on metals or meats. And I said, meats. I can go back to Chicago where the exchanges hosts the livestock trading. I can see my family and my friends. And they said, not so fast. Everything we do here has a physical element. We have physical cocoa, we have physical coffee, we have physical grains. If you're going to trade livestock, then you're going to learn this business. So I went to places like Greeley, Colorado, Dodge City, Kansas, Hereford, Texas, and the guy that got medals got to go to London and Paris and Geneva. Those are the breaks, but I remember vividly the first pen of cattle that I ever put on feed going to visit. It was about 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning in the fall. The sun was rising over the panhandle sky. Feed truck was dropping off feed. Steam was coming up from the bunk. Cattle charge, and I was hooked. And I said to myself, not only do I want to be a trader, but I want to be involved in production agriculture. And from that point forward, I utilized my resources to make it my goal to utilize institutional capital to bring those two things together. And so what started with one pen is now the world's largest cattle feeding operation, Five Rivers Cattle Feeding. And I don't know where it leads us next, but I'm not done. I'd certainly like to grow. So that's the abbreviated long story, if you will.
And I mean, that's so interesting. Like, 13-year-old you to now, just the trajectory that you've accomplished in that time. What was your family's reaction to the spark of not just wanting to work in trading, but also then going into production agriculture?
I think my mom really understood the trading thing because we lived in the Chicago suburbs and there were plenty of traders in and around our community, but she never understood the agricultural thing. My dad, who smoked Marlboros at the time, he understood it. He said, oh, you get a hat, you get boots, you get cool jeans, can you get a horse? And so he thought it was fascinating. As the successes provided themselves and as we were able to give back to our communities, they were obviously extremely proud. It's one thing to be successful in your trade. It's another thing to give back. And I think that that's a major theme of what we do at Arcadia, Five Rivers, and that's embedded within me.
Yeah. And speaking of giving back, you have the beef sticks to backpacks?
Beef sticks for backpacks.
Beef sticks for backpacks.
Yes. So my wife and I founded Beef Sticks for Backpacks back in 2018. When we came to Colorado from Oklahoma City, we were trying to figure out a way to give back. The industry has been really great to us, and there was a program in the panhandle of Texas that was providing backpacks of food to food insecure kids. And the star of the backpack happened to be this beef stick. And I said to my wife, well, what if we created a beef stick and we're able to put a beef stick in every backpack program in the state of Colorado? Fast forward, we convinced Dr. Delmore over at Colorado State University to allow us to make those beef sticks at the meat lab. And we were doing about 350 a week. And as of today, we're doing about 25,000 a week. Wow. Hitting about 90% of the counties in the state, and on a populated weighted average, certainly in excess of 90%. So it's a 1 ounce stick with 9 grams of protein, and we're hopeful that beef can help change lives, because if students are hungry, they don't learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And protein. You
And
just need protein.
Protein is
Yeah.
huge,
Yeah.
and it's beef protein, so we know it's the best of all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love my beef sticks or turkey
Excellent.
sticks or like all the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stick to the beef sticks, Lauren.
I know. I
Yes.
should. Turkey is
No turkey
No.
sticks.
What is a turkey?
Yes.
There's only beef.
Right, even on Thanksgiving.
Right. Exactly. Actually, we did that a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
We only cooked steak for Thanksgiving.
That's
was-
our family tradition.
Yeah.
So we usually cook a tenderloin or a ribeye roast. So yeah.
We actually got it at CSU too.
Ah.
Yeah.
It's a great place to get it.
So what else? Tell us more about your journey. So you had your first job was in trading.
Yep.
You at what point were you ready to become like leader, manager, owner?
Yeah, so I come from a long lineage of entrepreneurs. My dad was an entrepreneur. He was an automobile dealer. My grandfather on my maternal and paternal side were both entrepreneurs. My great-grandfathers on both sides were also entrepreneurs. Beyond that, I couldn't get you much further in terms of lineage. But it was inherent within me to become an entrepreneur, and I always knew I was going to work for myself. A handful of circumstances probably accelerated that process, and the great financial recession of 2009 is ultimately what propelled it. And so I was working for two oil and gas Forbes list guys in Oklahoma City, and the Great Recession hit, and novelty businesses like a hedge fund or a family office was no longer important. And at that point, I had to do my own thing, and I created my own fund for Arcadia Asset Management back in 2009. Arcadia is supposed to mean a rural utopia, so it kind of fits. It also happened to be the town I lived in Oklahoma. So that's basically, I always knew it was going to happen. I just didn't know what the circumstances were. And I think there's a story there. When one door closes, another one opens, right? You kind of lose your gig and you think it's over, but it's not. That's when the real opportunity hits.
Yeah. Seeing opportunity.
Yeah.
One of the entrepreneurial characteristics. An eye for opportunity.
Exactly. And an eye for risk.
That's true.
Calculated risk.
Calculated risk taking. Yeah.
Yeah. Now that you touched on both Arcadia and then also Five Rivers, what led you and your group to facilitate just the purchasing of Five Rivers? You know, was there just a moment where you saw it as an opportunity and you thought, we need to do this?
Yeah, it's a great question. I never really wanted to own the asset infrastructure. So the Arcadia program was feeding approximately 100,000 head of cattle in 35 feedlots in 7 different states. We took a very opportunistic and data-dependent approach to feeding cattle. When the margins were good, we would place cattle and feed big. When margins were poor, we would sit on our cash. A series of events back in 2017 led to JBS selling Five Rivers cattle feeding. And it was at that point, if I could have the best assets with the best management team, with the best employees, in the best geographic locations, that was something that I wanted to buy. And my partners and I, that have been my partners since 2009, agreed, and they said, yeah, let's go get it. And we muscled pretty hard to make sure that we were the ones that won it, and we did. And we've created tremendous value for our investor base. We have created even more value, I believe, for our employees in terms of bonuses and opportunity. And we're extremely proud of it because we took a business that is, and this is not a word, uninstitutionalizable, and made it institutionalizable by reducing a lot of the volatility inherent within the commodity. And that comes from my trading background. So, in addition, data is a huge part of what we do. One of the best things about not growing up in this business is every morning I wake up believing I don't know anything about cattle feeding. I could tell you a lot about cars, probably a lot about used cars, but I couldn't tell you much about cattle at the time. So we would collect a lot of data to help make us the decisions on procurement for our program. And without that data set, I don't think we would, or the reliance on data, I don't think we'd be as successful. Data drives everything for me. In our small Arcadia program, which isn't that small, but small relative to Five Rivers. I'd like to speak to what we did in terms of data. So when we started, we had nothing. So we utilized some data from the pharma industry that was compiling cattle closeouts. And we were able to make procurement decisions based on that data set. And as we found success, we started collecting our own data. And it became statistically significant enough that we were able to plug in our data to help us take some of that subjectivity out of cattle feeding. And one of the ways in which we do that is we ask the data certain questions. For example, what does a 550-pound steer bring in Joplin, Missouri when I place it in October? And then it should spit out to me the average conversion, the average outweight, and the average daily gain for that particular animal. Those are the key metrics and variables to figure out performance. The problem with averages is they can lie, right? There's a little bit of volatility. Half are going to be better, half are going to be worse. If you have a long enough runway and a big enough balance sheet, you can survive that. But that doesn't necessarily mean that my investor appetite wants that type of volatility. So what we're doing today is we're starting to incorporate AI, machine learning, and decision trees. And we're seeing tremendous results in terms of what the model is doing relative to the averages. And so the model that is currently forecasting those three big variables is seeing R squared's 50% better than linear regressions. And so we're pretty excited about that. And I think the point is that we have a model that works, but you never stop learning and you never stop fine-tuning because you don't want your model to be irrelevant. And so you're constantly tweaking that model. And I think you mentioned.
Yeah, and when you have a better model, the risk for error minimizes, it shrinks.
Yep.
And then, any error that you get in a model that with millions of dollars, you can end up costing a lot.
Yeah, it could amplify quickly, right?
Very much so. Yeah. So, and I think Hadden, you were talking to us a little bit about AI and on the break, and curious what you want to share.
Well, since AI can make mistakes and it wouldn't be as volatile as an average, just how, do you guys, are you able to improve your own AI systems and systems on that? And in any errors would how do you
So I think this is a great learning opportunity. Look, AI is going to be a part of your lives. Mm-hmm. It's probably going to be a big part of your education for the balance of your time at CSU, and then if you go on to seek additional degrees. What I would tell you is you better be an expert in your field before you ask the question, right? Because I can sniff out a BSer in a conversation. Similarly, I can sniff out the BS in asking the model or a machine, an MLM, a question. So if it's lying to me, I would know because I'm an expert in cattle. So I ask it questions that will that I have a pretty decent idea if it could lie. Yeah. Now, what we do with the models in terms of predicting performance is we take 20% of the data and we keep it out. Mm-hmm. And so we feed it 80%, it runs the model, and then we say, okay, these are the actual results on 20%. What do you model think would have happened? And then we can compare the actual to what the model spits out. Mm-hmm. And so you're constantly taking some data and keeping it in your pocket, just like you don't reveal all of your secrets to your best friend, right? Mm-hmm. You got to leave something for a road trip.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just a smart way of doing it, the out of sample predictions. Mm-hmm. And I really want to second what you said, Jordan, too, is that to be a subject matter in your field so that you can use AI effectively and suss out what's a valid answer, what's something that you have to go back to the prompt and say, did I articulate this correctly? So that you can differentiate between something that's really a valid answer versus something that's BS.
Yep.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of BS in there.
So back to data-driven decision-making, you've been in this industry for quite some time, and I'm curious if you have specific examples or maybe another example of a time in which you've been able to see technology help you collect better data.
Sure. I think one of the fortunate things about Five Rivers is its quest for knowledge. We have 2 full-time veterinarians. We have 2 full-time PhD animal nutritionists. And we are at the forefront of research. Those folks are constantly doing research to help find us the newest product or the best product or a new delivery of an old product or a re-examination of how we're delivering a product to get efficiencies. And so that constant work to do the research and do it in a big pen trial study has allowed us to stay at the cutting edge of all of the new technologies that come in, and has also kept us away from poor technologies that have sold themselves as being good. And so it's a form of defense and a form of offense. So we're pretty fortunate that we have such a high class and intellectual and curious group of doctors in our office.
Yeah, that's great. And so, tell us a little bit now about how would you advise a startup company in this industry or maybe even adjacent industries of trying to stay ahead while also trying to balance, reaching a target audience, gaining customers, and being able to deliver a product or service.
So I had a great boss, and he comes as one of my guest speakers. He was my first real boss. And he said, Jordan, you paid to go to college, and we're going to pay to teach you here. So the point is that as you start to do things, it will be costly. You can't be afraid to fail, and you can't be afraid to have it cost you something. Sometimes it may just cost you time and not necessarily costing you money. And so that's a long way of saying take the chance. But if you're going to take the chance, you got to take calculated risks. You got to do the work. You don't just throw the dice. That's the risk, right? Anyone can throw dice. The hard part is the patience and the work as to where to place those bets before you throw those dice. And I think that that's an important aspect of what successful entrepreneurs do. Everything I would tell you is the beautiful thing about America is it doesn't hurt to fail. Right? There are laws that have rewarded people and protected people from trying startups, trying a new business, etc. And I hate to bring up the bankruptcy laws, but that's what they're there for. The bankruptcy laws are literally there to give people the opportunity to try things and take on risk. And that's the beautiful thing about American capitalism. And you can read all the success stories of guys that maxed out their credit cards and hung out in their garage, and they worked their butts off to get successful. And for every one of those, there's 1,000 where guys failed. But then they came back and did it again with a new idea, and then they became successful. And so I'm a big believer in taking the chance.
So practically speaking, how would some startup founders approach, say, getting capital, sources of capital? I mean, you have the way that they could just bootstrap it, go into maybe debt financing with a bank. You've mentioned PE, private equity. So how would a young entrepreneur, startup founder approach seeking capital?
Yeah, so that's a hard one because it's still hard to attract capital even when you're at my level and have success. Money tends to chase returns, and a lot of times money doesn't understand the things that we're interested in. And so the best place to start is friends and family, and give them alignment. Not just, all right, you're going to give me the money, and if I'm successful, I'm going to return it with interest. The best way to attract capital is to attract capital as partners. And give yourself a buyout clause, but say, hey, if you really believe in this, you're along for the ride too. If I'm successful, you're successful beyond a guaranteed 5 or 10% return. You're in it like I'm in it. And if this thing blows up, you'll be as wealthy as me. Or, you'll get to increase your wealth. And I'll be as wealthy as you.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's a good twist.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, going off of that, as far as talking to potential investors and setbacks, failures, how did you get around taking no for an answer?
It's a good question. I have an 11-year-old who's about to be 12, and I actually learn a lot from him because he doesn't take no for an answer. He is the most persistent human being I've ever met. And as a result, he gets most of the things he wants. I think it's the presentation, it's the pitch, right? If you go into a meeting and you are the expert and you wow them with your communication skills, your writing skills, your arithmetic skills, and you're the subject matter expert, it's hard for people to say no. I was with my partners this weekend, or yesterday at a meeting, and we all laugh over a glass of wine about how I came in with this pitch book. And it's two brothers. One of the brothers didn't want to take the meeting, and the other brother took the meeting. He's obviously the younger brother. And he says, "Give me 2 minutes." And he bangs on the door. He goes, "You got to hear this guy. I have never in all of my career ever met anyone that knows more about a market than this guy. And it just happens to be cattle." And so the other brother came in. I wowed them both. And we've been in business since 2009, right? That could have turned terribly the other way. I could have gone in underprepared, underdressed, undercommunicated. But if you do the work and you're the subject matter expert, it tends to just create your own
you have
luck.
to make the offer. in
Yeah.
person,
Yeah. But if you're prepared, you'll create your own luck. I still think it was a lucky day, but I was prepared. So I created the luck that day.
Yeah. Yeah, and I just think about the, like, in that, the curiosity. What sparks your curiosity? That there's so much about, you've mentioned to us about all the things that you're involved in, but getting to that point where you want to prepare, I think is driven by curiosity in a lot of ways.
Sure.
So what does that connection mean to you?
Yeah, I love to research. Like, to me, it's a puzzle. I don't like to do puzzles over Thanksgiving, but I have a passion for fly fishing. And I can tell you about every great fly rod in the world. And I happen to invest in what I think is the greatest fly rod in the world. And it's not a great investment. I think I shared it with you.
You did, yeah.
But the bottom line is that I love to research and I like to find the answer. And to me, that's exciting. And I think it's a skill or an attribute or a trait that entrepreneurs generally have, is that they want to be the foremost expert in whatever it is that they're doing. And so I would say that that's a trait, if you don't have, you should acquire, is that thirst for knowledge.
Yeah, the thirst for knowledge. I certainly.
Did I answer that right?
Yeah, I love that
okay.
answer. I certainly feel that that's very relatable.
Yeah.
Very relatable.
Well, you're a lifelong learner, right? You're a doctor.
Lifelong learner. And I think of myself as maybe a thought entrepreneur, some constantly seeking new ideas for whatever project I can work on next or class that I can teach next. And one thing that I wanted to...
But what motivates you is to provide the best experience for the teachers, right?
Truly, yeah.
Like, you don't want to just have an average class.
No.
So you do the work
Yep.
to have the best class in that subject matter, not only on campus, but probably in the world. That's your goal.
Yeah.
Is to have the best class. And I
Yeah.
think that that's no different than if you're a founder of a button factory or a fly rod or a cattle guy.
Right.
Right? That's
Yeah.
what...
It's the experience. I want and it's so important because I think learning is so fun, and I want to share that excitement that I have about learning in the classroom environment. And yeah, it's definitely a process. There's never a destination.
Yeah.
It's all about the journey.
And where they're lucky is there's so many different ways to learn. Like when we went to school, or when I went to school, there was one way to learn. You read.
You read.
Now you can watch a video. You can listen to a podcast. You can ask AI to give you a summary. Our only summary were those silly yellow books, the Cliff Notes. Yeah.
Yep.
And then you got caught cheating.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Today, there's so many ways to learn
Yep.
that fit your style of learning. So.
Yeah, very lucky, because as we know, there are many ways to learn.
Yeah.
There are many ways to be able to receive information. Like, I definitely like to hear and read things together. I think we talked about this in the car. Yeah. So I want to call back something to an earlier part of the conversation about partners and teams. So what we've seen a lot in the class is that a lot of businesses require multiple managers, maybe partners. So how does that play out in your business, and how do you differentiate between what falls under your domain and then maybe what falls under your partner's domain?
Sure. In that commodity trading class I teach, there's no individual work. Everybody is in a cluster or a team. Any of you that think you're going to sit at a desk with your earbuds in and are going to be left alone to work are wrong. The way in which successful businesses work is teamwork and collaboration. So much so that I have an office that I go to at the end of the day, but 2/3 of my day I'm sitting in a long line of desks with no dividers, and we're all collaborating all day. And so that's a long way of saying that the most successful businesses are ones that have a foundation of collaboration and teamwork. And so if you're not good at that today, get good at it before you graduate from your undergraduate. Along those same lines, when we look at operationally, at the feedlots, for example, our most successful departments are the ones that still have that collaboration and teamwork. So when I'm working with my partners, one thing we do really well is that we leave greed at the door. Like, you cannot always take all of the money. And that goes for whether you're buying something or selling something or partnering with something. It has to be amicable. It has to be mutually beneficial. And so my partners and I have always done well together because they've been super supportive in good times and bad. And we have a very amicable relationship in terms of profitability and sharing. One of the reasons that I get a lot of calls on cattle, other than my ability and capacity, is I don't try to beat them up all the time. This is what I can pay. If you can sell them higher, please do, because I want you in business tomorrow. And so if you're always trying to squeeze your counterparty or your partner or your customer, it's not a sustainable business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. It's especially connecting it to the building blocks here in school to the, later on when you're working in a company and working on teams. I mean, even myself too, when I got out of college, I was on a team of 5 people. Yeah. We were all, meeting every week. And
everybody played a role.
Everyone played a role.
You didn't do it all, and the hanger-oners didn't last.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there were none because it was a great team. But
everyone's like, my part played into their part, and then they helped to build this next thing, so we're all feeding on for each other. Right. My question next is about, we're talking about building blocks, so experience. What can students in, our program be doing today to, whether that's, not necessarily starting their own company, but create other building blocks to set them up for working in an industry that requires teamwork, requires AI knowledge, requires data-driven decision-making?
Yeah, I know one of the big goals of the Department of Ag Sciences now is this internship program, is to create internships and have it, and this is the most important part, is mutually beneficial. There's nothing worse than somebody coming in for an internship just to build their resume. But if we bring you onto our place to become an intern, we want to hear what you've got to say too. Let's hear your thoughts, right? If you can provide feedback, an idea, it's a learning experience for both parties. And I think that goes back to the whole thing about partnership. It has to be mutually beneficial. So you can go into a internship, or you can find a mentor, you can knock on a door at a company and say, hey, I'm interested in what you do. This is what I can give back. I think that finds a tremendous amount of success at this age. One of the things I wanted to say prior to us getting cut off is you have a unique opportunity over these next 4 years to really learn beyond the classroom. When students come to our office, they're not threatening, right? We will tell you everything because more or less we don't believe you can compete with us because you're a student. When a peer comes in and says, hey, I want to learn about how you hedge, right? We're like, I don't know, right? We are very guarded, but to students, we'll teach. And so utilize your ability or utilize your status today as non-threatening student to go experience some of the things that you're interested in if you want to become an entrepreneur.
Yeah. What do you feel as a sort of from the other side as maybe like fears or blocks for achieving, the next step for you that maybe standing in your way?
Yeah, I mean, being young, failures feel like monumental. you know, you have your first big setback, whether it's with work, school, or you have something going on in your personal life. I understand, like, now at this time it feels monumental, but it's more so trying to learn to deal with the fact that you have to keep going no matter what, and just putting yourself in a position where one setback isn't going to ruin you, and it's not going to derail, you know, if you had plans for the future, derail where you thought you were going. It's just maybe going to change, you know, its form for the time being.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I feel like as someone who was in your shoes and then now is on the other side, I feel like this is the safest place to fail. Like, because there's so much support around you. It's almost like there's pillows catching the fall. Because maybe the failures will be more, I guess, the support system's not always guaranteed in other, I mean, once you're beyond.
Yeah, when you're out of the nest.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things we got from our live audience was is that the failure is also a learning experience,
Yeah.
right? So the failure is not a zero. The failure may feel like a zero, but by no means is it a zero because of all the things that you learned along the way.
Yeah. And then picking oneself up after the failure, it basically, like, it takes the edge off a little bit too for the next time it happens, because let's face it, there's more than one failure in life that's going to happen. Yeah. And if there's nothing else that I've heard time and again with chatting with the mentors too, is that failure is part of the process of being an entrepreneur. And so we can kind of practice that early on and, again, fail safely.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is going to, you know, open your mind and your eyes to taking a new approach. If you want to go for it again, you're taking a different stab at it.
Yeah.
I think it's super important to fail. You know, God knows all four of us probably have plenty of times in our lives.
Sure.
Yeah.
How about you, Hadden?
Well, I'd say something too that, like, dealing with, you know, thinking about coming out of college and just wanting to, you know, like you said, not be afraid to fail, is just that, just getting back up when you do. I would also just curious, like, ask about you. Like, what's a big time that, you know, if you had a big setback, and, like, what did you do to, like, come back from that?
Yeah, I had a pretty big setback in 13, 14 in terms of my trading. But I had incredible partners that stuck with me through thick and thin, and knew that one day, because of my knowledge and my passion and my work ethic, that I would create an opportunity to either get all that back and then some. And so that's the one that comes to mind. You know, I have this passion project that's going to lose some money. I'm learning that I should stick to what I know, not what I love. Outside of my family, I love them. And so those are some failures. But, you know, I for some reason, I don't remember a lot of the failures. I remember the successes. I've had a lot of bad days. I had a really bad day yesterday outside of my really good meetings, but by next week I won't remember it. Right? We talk about the failures. I remember, you remember that 7th grade science exam you got a C- on that you thought it was going to end your life,
Yeah.
right? It was totally insignificant, right? So just march on. So
I remember maybe the more positive times rather than the more negative times.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I had another thought. Yes. So you, Jordan, you knew what you always wanted to do.
yeah,
So you knew and you followed that path. But I see not everyone knows. I myself, I thought I knew, and then I had no idea. And then I finally figured it out later. But again, for some, at that time in my life, or, where students are now in college, that can feel really scary, the unknown and the unknown possibilities. So I'm curious how you might, advise or how you might reflect that back onto the students if
so
you don't know.
my experience is the anomaly.
Yours is the anomaly.
For sure.
Yeah.
One of the beautiful things about 4 years of college is this is where you go to decide what interests you, in addition to becoming a critical thinker, right? But to me, it's to try things that you're interested in. I think some of the greatest entrepreneurs didn't set out to do what made them ultimately successful. I don't think, and I don't know this for sure, that Jeff Bezos really wanted a bookstore, right? It's just he really liked e-commerce. And then he found his niche. It happened to be books. And then the books became secondary, and now we buy weird stuff on Amazon, right? And so to me, it's, find your passion and go down that path, but it's okay if your passion changes. That's totally fine. But use these 4 years to really open your mind to finding what's interesting to you. Like, I didn't think that soil sciences could be really neat until I met some of the soil science professors. Just still don't think it's that neat. But.
Yeah. So I guess we'll kind of round it out with our last question of sort of if you could go back to your 25-year-old self or 20-year-old self, even maybe, what advice would you give to them, or what might you say even to the new generation now or young generation now with all these new technologies? What advice would you, one final comment?
Yeah, I think if I could do anything different, I would have started giving back earlier. I didn't start really giving back until I was in my 40s. And giving back feels really good. And the people that you meet along the way is super incredible. And so, if you can give back as hard as you work to get it, it's an incredible feeling, and the impact it has that is absolutely mind-boggling. And so, the younger Jordan should have started giving back earlier, as opposed to later in life.
I love that. That's great. It definitely feels good to give back.
It does.
Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks to Coal and Hadden for being our co-hosts and
our live studio audience.
our live studio audience.
Yeah, they did great.
Amazing.
Thank you so much. This was awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate you taking the time to do this with us.